Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Rob. We are going to talk about White Lotus. Last night was episode 4 of season 3. Rob, did you listen to my discussion with Sophie a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. I listened to the first half of it. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed the conversation, and yeah, it's been interesting, sort of since that podcast to sort of see how things have developed and played out. I think, yeah, it's a slower. I think you two had mentioned at some point in that conversation, it seems a little bit slower than the first seasons, but I
Mm.
think this most recent episode, you watched last night's episode, right?
Of course, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, so it seems like it's picking up, like the pieces are being put into place, and I've always enjoyed this show, not because of how fast paced it is, but it's more like the vibe and the immersion into the mood of the show. I think like it's almost as if the plot itself is incidental. I mean, it's fun, but also just to like be with these kinds of overprivileged people in an exotic location who are dealing with personal problems, and it just feels like very I almost wonder if like this time of year is the wrong time for this kind of show. The first season, I think it aired during the summer, and it feels to me like much more like a summertime show. But yeah, so far it's been good.
So the timing. So yeah, we're gonna give spoilers here through episode 4, like we always do. The timing is interesting because they mentioned she voted for Trump. So I guess that could have been, the one of the remember
Hmm.
that discussion. So
Oh,
that could have been.
interesting.
I think it's
Yeah.
supposed to be. I think they planned it for. Well, I mean that could be 2020, and it could probably not 2020 because of that could be 2022, 2023, it could be 2017. Trump's been the presidential nominee for a long time. So yeah, but
No, I
I
think it's supposed to be the modern day. I think like
it's
they
supposed to be.
the timing of the show is roughly like
Oh,
each
you know
season
why?
tracks the era. Yeah.
Because of the Russian invasion. Remember, that guy was there. That guy
Oh,
when
yeah.
they
Yeah.
found out he was Russian. Like he's Russision. Oh my god! To be Russian was kind of taboo after early 2022. So at least we could put it
Yeah.
in. At least we could put it after
I
that
think it
time
had to
period.
be because I think when it might have been Belinda, the black hotel employee, it was the most recent episode. She was clicking through to like read what happened to Tanya, and I paused the news stories that she was
Hmm.
reading, and it looked like the news stories were in 2022, or maybe 2023. Whenever season 2 took place was when those stories
Uh,
were being reported,
I
and so I
see.
think the show unfolds in the same time that we're in. Yeah.
That makes sense because they know when the show's airing, so like they would want it to be as contemporary as possible. And like
Yeah. Right.
it's summer and I mean is it summer in Thailand? What season is it in Thailand? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
It's
that's a
warm.
good
It's
point
warm.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
warm year
warm
round, I
all the
think. It's
time.
tropical, yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So yeah, the timing, they're deciding whether to go to college. So he's gotten his college Lucky is getting his college acceptance, right? So this is
That's right.
what are we now in March? When do people
So
get
he's a
college
senior in high
acceptance?
school then. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And so
So
when do
yeah, I think
people
it's
get
supposed to be
acceptance?
roughly, early 2024 is when the show is unfolding. It's a weird time to go to on family vacation because if Lockie's still in high school, like doesn't shouldn't he be in class? Is it like spring break for them or something?
It could be. I mean, it's is it
Yeah.
why 2020? Why you say 2024 instead of
Or
2025?
25, I'm sorry, 25. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in
So if it's
25 now.
2025, but yeah, okay. So but like February, March, I don't think like I don't know this like how school even works these days. You have kids, you probably know better than me, but like wouldn't this be a weird time to take your kids on a family vacation if they are enrolled in
Huh.
classes?
I don't know. I'm a senior
Yeah.
year. I don't know. It's kind of sort of a goof off for a lot of people if he's already been
Hmm.
accepted to college. I mean, what does he
Yeah.
care
Has
at
has
this
he been
point?
accepted?
I think so. I think the whole point is
Okay.
like they're pressuring him. One is for Duke and one is saying
Oh,
UNC.
UNC. That's right. Yeah, that was
It would be
episode 1.
presumptions to assume, but who knows? Assume he's getting into both.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It was like he has a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
So
well, it
okay,
makes me like him more that he's actually struggling with this because both of those schools are in like proximity to one another, and it's really just about like his mom went to UNC. I mean, Duke is like the higher ranked school, so that would seem to be the obvious choice. But if he's wrestling with it, I mean, maybe he has some attachment to like legacy or family tradition or something, because otherwise, why would this even be a
yeah.
question unless UNC has some special program that he's interested in? But
right.
okay,
His
okay, yeah. You're right. That makes sense. Like the timing for that world. But then, yeah, I guess what I meant was more for us. Like, it's like the weather's still. It's not even spring yet. But when I watch this show, I always like. It makes me want to be like lounge by the pool and like enjoy the sunlight.
yeah, I don't know. Resorts, I've always found resorts kind of cramped. I don't know. Like whenever I go to a resort, it's like, you walk around and you see stuff. Maybe the White Lotus is so awesome. You have these professional quasi prostitutes who I guess you can have sex with, and you have, giant gardens and so forth, and your own personal butler. Maybe it's different. I've never been at a resort that fancy. Oh, actually, I have been, but
Hmm.
I didn't have like a butler and stuff. Um, yeah. Anyways, so this season, how much do you remember from the previous seasons? I don't remember much.
I mean, I know like the rough outlines. I haven't revisited them since you and I reviewed them, as they were airing, back then. But
Yeah.
the general mood and the vibe is the same, and like they always kind of have the same thing, right? Like someone dies, there's like a little bit of a mystery set up, and I guess that's just to like give the show a reason to have a plot. But yeah, I think it's much more about families struggling, each character with their own agendas, and just there's always that implicit kind of commentary of what's happening between the staff who work there and then the hyper rich privileged Americans who are visiting. And yeah, like yeah, we can get into the specifics, like that scene where Rick, the Walter Goggins character, like when he unleashes the snakes, he's, I think like that it was him sort of expressing his own. I mean, there was a lot of things going on there, but right before he did that, he was like looking at all of these like fat American tourists watching this snake show, eating,
Hmm.
and he's very clearly repulsed by it. And then he's like, "I'm gonna go unleash these snakes because like I'm upset with all these people here who are like, enjoying themselves and getting fat and watching this as a sideshow, when these are beautiful creatures who should be free."
Is that why? Because I thought he himself is the snake. I thought he himself is, he saw, because his girlfriend Chelsea says, they're horrible creatures. He says, even horrible creatures deserve to be free. And I think he's talking about himself there.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it was multiple things going on there. I think that was one reason. But right before that, he was like, there was like that slow motion, the camera panning around. He's looking at, these guys like eating popcorn or whatever and watching the snake show. And you could see on his face, like, it could still be that he views himself as the snake and he's being observed by these people who he detests. And then he decides to set them free. So I think like, those are like kind of intertwined reasons.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, the plot is, yeah, I remember looking back previous seasons, I remember the characters more than I remember the plot. Like I could tell you that I don't even remember their names very well, but I remember the tech bro and his Asian friend last year, or
Mm.
the last season, and I remember the wife, I remember that Audrey woman, that's the actress's name. I remember her, the
Aubrey
super frigid,
Plaza.
yeah, the super frigid liberal woman. So I remember these. I have a hard time remembering exactly. I remember Sydney Sweeney's character, of course, from the first season. I remember her and her stuck up friend. I
Yeah.
remember the brother, so I can remember the character. The characters are kind of easy. So yeah, it is about the characters. The plot is kind of secondary, but the plot is, the plot reveals the characters, obviously. So the Greg character. Um, he's like a criminal. He tried to. Do you remember exactly what he was like? He was like hitting on Tatiana, and he was like going out with her. That was the it turned out he was like a criminal, and they were gonna him and his gays were gonna kill her. Was that the we're gonna spoil all
Oh,
the seasons here,
Tanya. Yeah,
folks.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that was the thing, right? He was trying to, but she ended up like escaping and then accidentally killing herself, right? Like in the stupidest way possible. I think that's my recollection of
Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
happened.
More or
Okay, so yeah,
less. Yeah, yeah. That's what happened. Yeah,
okay,
he was
and
trying to
so
get yeah, basically set her up so that he could take her fortune. And I don't remember if that was successful or not because she did die. I mean, did he end up inheriting or receiving, whatever windfall as a result of her death?
well, they said she's her
Um
husband, and then when Belinda reads the Belinda reads the news story. Says he's like not responsive for questioning. He's like kind of traveling the world. So I think he's the husband. He has a legal right to it. But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, he okay. So I think the main characters here are the Ratcliffe uh, family, right? They're kind of like they're kind of the central
Mm.
story here. What do you make of this? Like this incest stuff that Sophie was talking about. Was that like I don't know? We haven't seen it in the last two episodes. Was that just her kind of vivid imagination?
I'm not really getting at, well, the most recent couple of episodes, I think like it started that way. Like I could see why people would think that. Um, but the more recent episodes, there wasn't really any hint of it. I'm not really seeing it now. Like I think it's just the show may just be playing with you a little bit and attempting to it's like it's just ambiguous enough to make you think, okay, maybe there's an incest undertone here, but I actually don't think that's where the show is going. I don't think there's going to be any kind of incest, although I guess you could, as I'm speaking, I'm remembering that scene which doesn't have anything to do with the siblings, but there was that weird scene where Tim, the Jason Isaacs character, the dad, he's like hopped up on lorazepam, and he like has his bathrobe is exposes his dick to the whole family, and
Mm.
like I guess like is that meant to like contribute to fueling these speculations about like just the sexual undertones within the family. But I'm not really getting it with the
Well,
siblings.
the
I
the
don't think that's
other
going to happen.
well, speaking of which, yeah, speaking of Tim, the other thing when he was like sort of caressing his daughter when he was like in that emotional state, and he's like, "I love you," and then he starts like squeezing her face. She's like, "Okay, Dad." Like after a while, like at first she was like, "Okay," but then after a while, it was just it was just weird. I don't think he was trying to do something sexual or anything, but he was just like kind of in a really drugged state and kind of flirting with
I
her. I don't know.
mean,
Like I think they,
I don't think it was. Well, he'd also taken like God knows how
yeah,
many of his wife's
right. So
pills
that right
and
that reduces the kind of
booze,
inhibition, right?
but I guess
So
it's supposed
it's
to
part of it.
be. I think it's supposed to be ambiguous, but I think because of what we know about White Lotus, and because there's always a little bit of the sexual undertones throughout each season. Um, yeah, I just don't know if it's going to go in that direction. I think it's going to be pretty normal. Um, I remember in
Yeah.
season 2 there was that tension with who was the agent? I think it was Ethan was his name,
Mhm.
and the Aubrey Plaza character, and we were like, is he secretly gay? Does he have a cuckoldry fantasy? Like we were going
That was fun.
wildly
Yeah,
into
that was fun.
speculative territory, and ultimately, I think he just like wanted to see that he could get this girl, or like no, what was it, he was like remarking his territory because he thought that she might have fooled around with his friend who he had been in this kind of weird rivalry with, and then once he saw that he was attracted to her, that like revived his own libido. And so yeah, we had all these like wild theories, but ultimately it was a pretty normal thing, and I think that's what's going to happen this time is like the show's like misleading you into thinking something weird's happening, but I think this is just like a normal family with like it is like a weird thing where siblings are all the same age, and if you're all attractive, like maybe there is
Mhm.
like a weird chemistry thing that happens here that can be misconstrued by an observer, but I think they're
Yeah,
fine, it's normal.
but it's real too. It's not just misconstrued by observer. I just think there is a kind of like real undertone
You
here,
think you
even if
think like
nobody.
within the person themselves, they're feeling like, okay, I have whatever, like I have a hot brother, I have a hot sister,
Hmm.
but they're my sibling. You think this is
Yeah.
something you're wrestling? Maybe like I remember, and you probably read this book too, Seth Stevens Davidowitz's book, Everybody
Everyone.
Lies, and he says like
Right.
one of the number one search terms in porn is something incest related. So maybe not too far off.
Yeah. I mean, it's like proximity. I mean, proximity puts ideas into people's heads, and so there's a taboo, and like there's evolutionary reasons behind that,
The Westermark
but
effect, yeah.
there is that, but there's also like just reality too. There's just kind of you need the taboo. The taboo has to be strong because otherwise the temptation can be great. Um, and
Yeah, I remember
so
I had this conversation with this guy Michael Muthu Krishna who studies this stuff. He was a close colleague of Joseph Henrik, and I asked him about this very question. I asked, if it's the case that we evolved to be repelled by our siblings, right? Like, you don't want to have sex with your sibling. Like, we evolved, like you said, there's evolutionary reasons for this. Then why is it that so many societies across time and history have had rigid taboos and laws against incest if it's just naturally disgusts us anyway? And he suggested, like, there's always going to be some people out there who are open to it. And, even if it's 1 or 2% of society who enjoys killing people and the rest of us wouldn't want to kill anyone, you still need a law in place to prevent that small percentage of people from acting on whatever depraved impulses they might have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, especially like in the throes of puberty and those kinds of things. So, yeah. But yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think that within the show itself, like, none of these
Yeah.
siblings are actually going to
No
do
more than
anything
like
like that.
like no more so than an average family of like attractive people in the same age. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I didn't buy her thing that Loki was gay for Saxon. I didn't think he was checking out his ass. I mean, that was her theory, that was her part of the
I mean, there's so many
idea
ways to
about
read
it.
that. I heard
Right.
that, and what I thought was, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, that's what I
Well, what I
told
thought
her.
was
It was
going
like,
on there was it could be like a weird sexual thing. Fine, that's a possibility. The other thing I thought was, like one of the kind of inferences you can draw from their interactions is, because Saxon is like, this most recent episode, Saxon makes these protein shakes and he's telling Loki, drink up, chug that shit, let's go.
mhm.
And I think Loki may also, it's not so much that he's like sexually interested in Saxon, but more so like, he's this scrawny 18-year-old kid and he sees his big, brawny, mid-20s brother who's just like jacked and handsome, and he's looking at him and, whatever. Like, he's just like seeing his body and he's a little jealous and like wishes that he could also bulk
Uh,
up in some way too. So it could be like, I'm sexually attracted. It could also be like, I admire my brother's physique and I wish I could look like that.
yeah, I took it a little bit differently. I took it like it was just a kind
Hmm.
of, I don't know, like I think, okay, so the idea is Saxon is the guy who's always going around being like, let's have sex, guys, ha ha ha, joke about sex, ha ha ha, I'm so comfortable with all this stuff. And he's like sort of making everyone else uncomfortable. It's sort of like his power move to say I'm the guy who's like open, right? So he's like, sort of like shoving his ass, he's sleeping naked, he's like, he's sort of shoving his ass in Loki's face. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go jack off now, ha ha ha!" And then he like walks to the bathroom, and then like Loki is just like uncomfortable because this is like how Saxon kind of establishes dominance, right? He's just like, "Yeah, I'm naked, I'm free, and like nothing matters," right? And I think Loki, I mean, I think he was like fascinated by it because like it's like disgusting. It's like you see something disgusting and it just kind of throws you off, and you kind of can't stop thinking about it. And I think that was kind of more of the issue. His
Yeah.
brother has. I talked to Sophie about that, but he has a small ass for a built guy. I mean, it's not a
Revisit this. Yeah.
yeah. That's so I don't know. When you said he's like, oh, he's so buff, I was just thinking he's like, maybe he's thinking there's a discrepancy between the upper body and the lower body.
Maybe he's skipping leg day, he's skipping squats. I don't know, but
What
yeah, I
bothers me
think
that
like, yeah, I just don't think it's a gay thing. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe the show will go in that direction. I don't really. I think it's setting us up again to like move our minds in these depraved directions, and then really it's just going to be like a normal family who are hormonal and young and whatever. So
The what's something, that little thing that bothers me about the show, it's the protein shake. They keep saying they taste bad, and that was true like 15 years ago. But protein shakes today, the taste has
they're pretty
improved a
good.
lot. I feel like, yeah, I feel like Mike White, maybe he's an old guy who hasn't worked out in a very long time. He just has this
Yeah.
assumption that they're all like super nasty, which is just, they're not true. They taste
Everything
good.
tastes better now. It's crazy. Like, so protein shakes taste better. Energy drinks, like I remember like energy drinks, yeah, 10 15 years ago, they tasted kind of gross. And like I drank a couple of different energy drinks recently. I'm usually not an energy drink guy, but I just figured, I was in a health food store and I tried them out, and I was like, wow, like it's like almost indistinguishable from like a like juice or something. It's
Yeah,
so good.
yeah.
And then what else? Oh yeah, like protein bars, protein
Mm.
cookies. Like,
Yeah, they're
it's
really
like
good.
it
Yeah,
tastes like
Pop
the real thing
Tarts,
now.
Danish.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say they're the same thing, but you tasted those 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They were nasty. It was a chore to eat them. It's not a chore to eat them anymore. So I was just like really bothered that like if one guy
Yeah, but
didn't like them, okay, but both brothers thought they tasted nasty, and he was like, "Oh no, you
oh,
don't
oh, did
drink it for the
Saxon also
taste."
say it's
Yeah, yeah,
gross?
yeah. Because
Okay.
well, Saxon, he doesn't say exactly. He says like, "Come on, man." No, no. Actually, he does. I think he does. He goes, "How does it?" Lucky asks him like first time he brings up protein shakes, like, "How does it taste?" And he's like, "It's not good, but man, it's you do it for the to get buff. You don't do it for the taste." So it wasn't like, "Oh,
Okay.
actually, it's pretty good." It was like something that everyone knew that these things tasted badly, which
Okay,
I
because
think that like
what I was thinking there was that
yeah, it must be an old producer who hasn't drank a protein shake in like 20 years. I mean, that's the only
yeah.
way you could write
Well,
it like that.
what I was thinking was like, if Saxon wasn't drinking it, he may have been intentionally making them taste bad to fuck with his brother,
That's
to
pretty.
like make him do something he doesn't want to do. But yeah, I mean, if he's drinking it too, then yeah, it may just be like this outdated, that cultural trope still exists that, oh, protein shakes, they're so gross. But yeah, things have changed. They've advanced quite a bit in the kind of like health food area.
Yeah, yeah. Capitalism, amazing things. They used to, they used to also like. Yeah. Anyways, enough about health foods. But okay. So yeah, um, the Ratcliffe family. We saw, I think, some insights into Victoria. Um,
Hmm.
that's the mom's name, right? Victoria.
I think that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
should have the cast
Victoria.
names up, huh?
Yeah, she's weird. I mean, she's got this thing where it's like this is like associated. I think about like
Yeah.
old ladies from like third world cultures are sort of like this, like maybe like rednecks or like backwards cultures like rednecks. Like I think like a lot of Middle Eastern people are like this. Maybe just traditionalists, like people with more traditional values, where they are like, you can't trust anyone outside the family. She's always like, I can't be around these people. These people are not decent. She's very, very kind of paranoid about everyone around her. She
Hmm.
doesn't trust she has good relations with her like family. She likes her family, and she likes the staff. She's comfortable in like the staff kind of hierarchical relationship with somebody who works in the hotel. But she doesn't like other people. She doesn't trust them. When that woman was it Kate, the middle woman of the three women, like tries to establish a connection because they once hung out over
Oh
a weekend.
yeah,
She's just like doesn't want to deal with her at all. Just like is very cold, and so it's just
yeah.
like it's kind of like yeah, this kind of like she has this backwards kind of low trust culture mentality.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. This most recent episode, when they're talking about going on the boat, the boat ride, and I don't know, one of her kids was like, well, you like, why are you so socially anxious? You talk to people at the club. I think it was like the country club or something, and she's like, yeah, but it's different. I know who they are. I know those people. And
Yeah,
then you see Tim, his hands, his head in his hands. He's like, "Oh my god, the club!" Because he's realizing like his reputation is like everything's going to be destroyed because of his he's getting investigated for fraud. So he realizes, oh, like my family relationship with those other families at this club is going to be demolished. But she's like, I know those people. I think like she likes, yeah, you said hierarchy. She likes kind of knowing who is placed where, and like a sort of social dynamic, social hierarchy, and being able to quickly read sort of that whole thing. Whereas when she meets new people, she's like uncertain. But it's I feel like by now we should have some sense of like why she's that way. We don't really have it yet. Maybe it'll develop over time. Or maybe this is an actual type, because I've never met a person like this who like literally needs to like be taking benzodiazepines just to like function in what did it her daughter said something like, how many
yeah,
lorazepams do you need for 1 week at a wellness spa?
yeah,
Like you
yeah.
see her right before a massage, she has to take a pill. And yeah, like it's we're not really like, is the show going to give more information about why she is that way? Sounds like you're just saying, she grew up in the South, low trust culture. She needs
Yeah,
to
I think that's a
know who
common.
everyone is.
It's a common kind of thing, and her accent, is very thick. I mean, very, and I thought too thick for like a UNC graduate. Like it's just like she sounds like Marjorie Taylor Greene or something. I mean, it's like a kind of very just like a very strong Southern accent, not like a
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
refined or
her husband has a
yes,
southern accent
yeah, but it's not as
too.
extreme. It strikes me as his is higher class than hers. I don't know the exact difference between, but it
Well,
seems
he's
to me
so
like
Jason
hers.
Isaacs is British, so he's like he's putting on the accent. Whereas maybe for the actress Parker Posey, she's American, I think, and so maybe for her, it just comes out differently when they impersonate the Southern accent. Um, but I don't know, like often, like with shows, like they exaggerate accents depending on like
Mm.
geography of the characters. Like, if you watch like shows set in Boston or movies set in Boston, they always have this like very thick Boston accent. But then when you visit Boston,
Mm.
that accent exists, but not nearly as prevalent as you would expect based on pop culture. And so I don't know. I think sometimes with shows they just like to
Yeah.
like add the accent to give the characters a bit more layer
Well,
and
the kids
texture.
don't. I mean, the kids don't really have it as much. It's kind of a generational thing.
Yeah, that's
The
yeah. It's regional and
and the um yeah, and right. So I think it does. I think it does say something, because especially like a lot of upper class people, like in the South, they'll lose the accent or they'll play it down or something. The fact that she's not doing that, like she's like a kind of like expressing fealty to her kind of redneck background or upbringing. It might not be redneck. I mean, she might not be poor or something. She might be like a rich, proud
no,
family of
there
like
are
Southern.
like
Yeah,
there are those people who have like what do they call those, like the antebellum Southern balls or whatever. Like there are like
yeah,
upper
exactly.
class Southern
That's what
families.
I'm thinking of. Yeah, the probably more likely
Yeah.
that she came off of she's not saying she's like from a trailer or something. Yeah, she's probably a, upper class Southern
Is it cotillion? I'm trying
background.
to think of the word for this. Yeah, but like, yeah, she may have one of. Yeah, she probably does, based on the way she acts and treats people, and like likes to know who everyone's social position is. Um, yeah, and then yeah, her husband. Yeah, we get less sort of information about how he grew up. It's like his like character is more so like the walls are closing in around him. But that's an
Well, he
interesting
mentions.
observation that none of the kids
Oh,
have one, and I've
wait a
seen
minute.
this. Yeah.
Let me look it up, because he said that my grandpa was a governor. Let
Oh,
me see if
that's
there was ever
right.
a
Yeah,
governor
and
Let's see if there was ever a Governor Ratliff in the South.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
His
wow! Wait a
grandfather,
minute. There
governor
was
of North
there was a
Carolina.
there was a Texas Governor Ratliff, who served from what was lieutenant? Oh, he was lieutenant governor of Texas. Okay, that wouldn't be it. So I'm looking up Governor Ratliff. It doesn't
Hmm.
seem